Leaves of orange and yellow blanketed the floor. Falling through the dense air, they tumbled and twirled towards the ground, every now and then catching the rays of sunlight that pierced through the thick canopy of cedar trees that loomed over the forest. Walking through the forest, the entity Life was weightless and silent. Life took the form of a young, beautiful woman, and her elegant, glowing form and her kind aura brought joy to everything around her. Animals would gather and dance around her as she roamed the forest. She trudged on a muddy path that headed straight to a small graveyard situated on top of a hill. She reached a chilling graveyard where she met Death, an infamous entity that took the form of a dark, shadowy figure with the silhouette of a man. Death stood beside the weathering, mossy cobblestone wall that surrounded the graveyard. Leaning on the wall, Death blankly stared at the ground. "Hey Death, why so downed?" Life questioned. The animals following Life scurried away at the sight of Death. The grass near him seemed to have all life sucked out of it. It was a lifeless grey. But as Life approached, the colour revived in the grass to a bright, vibrant green and started dancing with Life once again. "I'm down because I loathe how everything strives in your presence, but when I'm around, animals seem to run for their life. Every footstep I take, life dies around me," he snapped. "People are afraid of me because they think I'm the cause of that. I hate it. I'm the one that takes the dead to a better place, but they won't ever understand that," Death shouted, pointing to the ghastly, foggy graveyard. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were feeling this." Life stuttered with a bewildered expression painted on her face. "Of course you wouldn't. Humans love you," Death retaliated. "Sorry. Please, just go. I need some time to myself," Death softly spoke. Getting engulfed into the darkness, Life swiftly disappeared into the forest. Death continued leaning on the wall where he contemplated the words he spoke to Life, until he got distracted by footsteps that were heard from the path behind the corner of the graveyard. Death hastily hid behind a tree, witnessing the approaching person. It was a young, beautiful girl, light brown hair with dark flowing streaks and glistening sapphire eyes. She stood in front of the tombstone, holding a bouquet of pastel pink flowers, and placed them gently in front of the stone. "Hey Mom, I really miss you. A lot has happened since you were gone," she cried with tears streaming down her face. "Since you died, Dad hasn't been taking it well, and he has been drinking a lot. I just really want you back." Hiding in the darkness, Death attempted to sneakily leaning closer to hear what the girl was saying. In the midst of it, Death accidentally stepped on a branch, causing an audible snap that echoed through the forest. "Hey, who's there?" she shouted while wiping away her tears. Death emerged from the darkness and stepped into the light. Stumbling backwards, the girl regained her balance with her eyes locked onto the thing in front of her. What are you?" she stuttered. "I am Death. I'm sure you've heard of me. I apologize for listening to what you were saying and frightening you." Yeah, I heard of you. Grandma says that you helped Mom go to the afterlife. And it's alright, I'm not scared anymore," the girl stammered. "You're not scared of me? Well, this is surprising. Most people are petrified if they are unlucky enough to encounter me. Well, I'm just grateful that you allowed my mom to rest in peace from her suffering. Thank you." "Chloe, I know you are here. Come here right now. I told you, you weren't allowed to come here," a man roared from the path behind the graveyard, seeming to make the ground tremble. "You have to hide right now. My dad blames you for my mother's death," Chloe insisted with visible fear flooding her eyes. Death swiftly sunk into the shadows once again, while the girl hesitantly walked towards her father, with her head down, trying not to face him. "I just want to talk to Mum," Chloe mumbled. The father was a castle compared to the girl, who was a shack standing in front of him. His eyes ferociously looked down on Chloe. "What don't you understand about the word dead? Your mum is dead, okay? Poof! Gone, she is dead!" The man howled at the top of his lungs, throwing his pint of beer onto the floor with a deafening crash. His cheeks turned red with a pool of rage, and he unclenched his fist into an open hand, sloping Chloe, making her fall down to the ground, leaving a red handprint on her face. "Since Mum died, you changed. Why are you so mean?" Chloe cried. Rustling sounds came from the trees. The leaves crunched from the ground with every step taken. Death emerged from the forest once more. "Hey, you cannot do that to your own daughter," Death shouted at the father. The man turned around to face Death, his eyes piercing into Death like a bullet going straight into his head. You are the one who took my wife from me." The man's voice was raspy from all the shouting. He stormed towards Death, pushing him with all his strength, making Death stumble back and trip onto the ground. "Go back to the darkness and never come out again. You are a curse to these lands," he continued to yell. After struggling to get up, Death regained his posture and started to approach the man. "Maybe I am a curse, but you are no better than me if you hit your own child." Death howled, shoving the man back in retaliation. Death jolted his hands back, looking in his hands and at the father again, realizing what he just did. The man's skin turned pale and greyish purple, collapsing onto the floor lifeless. The girl ran up to her dad, knees on the ground while hugging her father's corpse. No, 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 please, not you too. Seemingly out of nowhere, Life knelt beside the father of Chloe. Life rested her hand on the father's face. The father remained lifeless. Life looked at Chloe, then to Death solemnly and gently shook her head left to right, indicating that there's nothing she can do. Chloe turned her head across her shoulders, looking back to Death. Her sharp narrow eyes were filled with raging tears. Her eyes were in a rage storm piercing Death. You really are cursed to these lands.